Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Bware Labs' webinar series. Today's discussion will revolve around finding the elements required to build the next generation of Web3 applications, and we will think about how we can make building in the Web3 space more efficient and more developer friendly so that in the end we can end up with a better application and a higher quality user experience. In order to answer some of these questions, we have a special guest today. So I'm happy to introduce Marco, who's currently the growth lead for the Linea blockchain. Hey, Marco, great having you here.
Hello, Radu. Thanks for inviting me. Nice to see you.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. So I'd like to start with a short presentation about yourself, like telling us a little bit about your background, your experience, what you are working on at Linea, and more importantly, what is interesting to you about blockchain and blockchain technology.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Marco. I'm based in Italy. I'm one of the co-founder of Linea and also leading the growth. So I'm in charge to talk with all ecosystem partners to bring them on board on Linea and to find a way to create synergies because, it's not just about having dApps on Linea, but it's about having dApps that work together in order to build new things. That's where we can provide the biggest value as the Linea team. So where I'm coming from, my background is pretty technical. I'm an engineer and I started as a developer. Then I moved on the infrastructure side, spent a few years in the innovative infrastructure related to big data or IoT, a bit, let's say, some beginning of AI. It was something like 15 years ago. And then I discovered blockchain. It was late 2012. And I started actually focusing on blockchain for a couple of years just on my spare time. And then I decided to make the jump in 2015. I spent some times in the consulting industry that allowed me to develop some soft skills, not just technical, but also business skills. And so I joined Consensus in the BizDev team as a business developer person with a technical background. So it's something that helped me to grow in the space very quickly. When I joined Consensus, I started talking to the R&D team of Consensus, and they were just starting working on the ZK-EVM. It was actually one of the biggest decision drivers for me to join Consensus because I was aware that the R&D team was working on this. And so fast forward September last year, we had this meeting in the R&D team, and we started the process of moving Linea or the Consensus ZK-EVM out of the R&D project into a real initiative driven by Consensus. And yeah, so that's why I'm also a co-founder, because I was part of this process, and currently I'm leading the growth.
That's actually a great history. You're one of the OGs in the crypto space. I think in 2012 I haven't even used any blockchain technology back then.
Yeah, there are pros and cons. I used to be a Bitcoin maximalist for a while. So yeah, there are pros and cons, yeah.
Yeah, and also biz dev with technical background. That's ideal or a dream for people hiring biz dev. And
We have non-technical biz dev in Consensus that are great value for the company as well. That can the good approach is to have the right balance between these different skills.
totally makes sense. Okay, thank you for the presentation. Now I'd like to dive into the discussion for today and start with a short presentation about Linea and what you guys are trying to achieve. And one of the big questions that I have is revolving around the why, and the question is, why is there a need for an ecosystem such as Linea in the Web3 space?
Yeah, I mean, I could take a couple of hours on just on this question. So Linea is a layer 2 on top of Ethereum. It's the purpose of Linea is scaling Ethereum. So actually inherit the security of Ethereum to enable faster transaction and lower fees per transaction. That means that our purpose is to bring block space into the industry. That's our main purpose. Block space historically have been one of the biggest issue in the blockchain industry, not just for Ethereum, also for Bitcoin. And we hopefully we all know about the blockchain trilemma. So you cannot have a system that is secure, decentralized, and scalable at the same time. So if we cannot solve the dilemma, let's just switch the way we look at it. So let's get Ethereum mainnet to be secure and decentralized enough, and let's scale on a layer 2 by reducing some of the components like the decentralization. We don't need a fully decentralized layer 2 because our security is inherited by the Ethereum layer 1. So we can live with the less decentralized layer 2 that will allow us to achieve scalability and allow us to achieve security at the same time. So that's the purpose of all layer 2. Now, we already have a lot of layer 2 that are scaling Ethereum. Why we need the new layer 2? We definitely need the new layer 2 because we need to add more diversity into the space. If we are going to get a new bull run, Linea itself will not be enough to cover the traffic generated from the new bull run, because bull runs are just eating up all resources so far, and they will eat up every resources that we have available. So this time we need to bring much more resources that in other words are block space. So we need a lot of block space. And Linea alone, it's not enough. Like Arbitrum alone will not be enough, or Base alone will not be enough. So we need to find a way to provide as much as block space as we can, so that we can accommodate the next bull run. But we also need to have diversity, because think about 3 years from now, we have a dozen of L2 on top of Ethereum mainnet that gives all the block space that we need, that has really important ecosystem on all of them, but they are all based on the same stack. What happens if there's a bug into this stack? The whole Ethereum ecosystem goes down. The whole Ethereum layer 2 will go down. That's what we care that this will not happen. Consensus historically has been very near to the Ethereum ecosystem. Joe is one of the Ethereum co-founder, is our CIO. So it's really a mission for us to contribute to the growth of the whole industry, of the whole Ethereum ecosystem. And so it makes a lot of sense, since we have this great product that is coming out from our R&D effort. Just to give you a note, we started 5 years ago working on Rollups, then we moved 3 years ago working on ZK Rollups, and more than 2 years ago starting working on the ZK-EVM. And it was an R&D project. And the outcome of the project was that this ZK-EVM, it's not just solid in terms of soundness of the ZK part and the technology component. It also seems to be pretty much like the most efficient ZK-EVM we have out there. It's a type 2. For the one that are not aware, we have many ZK-EVM out there. The type 2 ZK-EVM, as defined by Vitalik, are the ones that are the most compatible as of today with Ethereum layer 1. More compatible than type 2 ZK-EVM are just type 1 that are actually ZK-EVM that are able to prove Ethereum mainnet blocks. But we are not there yet. So type 1 ZK-EVM are not live on mainnet yet. While there are a couple of, now we have 3 ZK-EVM type 2 that are Polygon ZK-EVM, Linea, and now recently Scroll with the launch of mainnet. Linea, we believe it will be one of the most efficient one, especially after the new upgrade we're going to do. So it makes a lot of sense for Consensus to say we have this piece of technology, it looks really good. We just need to go on the market to bring diversity into the different L2s out there. So we will have a future where we are going to see optimistic rollup, ZK rollup, ZK-EVMs rollup, and all of this will be able to have ecosystem that will be able to work on all of them, and in a multi-chain or native multi-chain approach. And that will be where we will see the biggest value, because then we will be able to fulfill a promise of providing a blockchain infrastructure that can scale and accommodate user need.
That's actually a very interesting approach on the scalability. I think it's the first time I'm hearing this perspective. Like you guys not only trying to scale the Ethereum ecosystem by providing a rollup or a layer two on top of it, but you're also considering the diversity of the technology stacks that is available out there and thinking about that as a whole. Because we see a lot of trends right now about using one specific stack and spinning up multiple chains, and that can represent an actual scalability problem, or maybe if not scalability, an actual reliability problem that might come as a challenge for the mainstream adoption of the blockchain technology.
It's pretty easy. Just as a disclaimer, I'm a big fan of VDF, verifiable delay function. So I was really excited to look at Solana launching. But actually, the issue is that if we go on scaling Ethereum with a single tech stack, we will end up like Solana. Like the first bug, we need to halt all the chains, and means that we need to halt the overall Ethereum ecosystem if it's going to move on layer twos. So this is extremely important. We need to learn from the mistake of the past Ethereum ecosystem environment, but also the overall crypto environment. So not having a good diversity, it's a big mistake.
Yeah, it's always a problem not to have options, and we see that as infrastructure providers and dev tooling providers. We see these sort of issues with ecosystems that don't have diversity on the clients that they support. We see that some blockchains have the same issues because they are using the same stack. So I think this is an actually good uh, a very good answer to the why question in this case.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for a very insightful response. Now I would like to go even in more details about the Linea ecosystem, and I'd like for you to tell us if there are any advantages that developers might have uh, if they build on Linea versus other L2s.
Yeah, that's a pretty common question that I get. Why, as a talking to many dApps, typically the most common question is, why should I build on Linea instead of another layer two? So from a developer perspective, we are implementing a standard that is the EVM. So from a developer perspective, there's no difference on building on Linea, building on Base or Polygon ZK-EVM or whatever. There are minor differences, like Linea is at London version of the EVM, while optimistic rollup are a bit more advanced because it's easier, because they don't have to prove the execution. So there are very small minor differences, but honestly, no dApp so far told us, no, we need to rewrite the code to deploy on Linea, or we need to re-audit the code. That will take too much time. So from a developer perspective, there's no difference at all. We implement a standard. So it's like I tell you, you got two plugs in your house, and like I tell you why you should put your power cord into the first plug or the second one. They implement a standard, so that there are no differences. Now the differences are behind the hood, like what's the technology on the back that will give the most reliability, that will give the most efficient. That means lower price in terms of fees for your users. This is relevant now because today layer 2 are still very expensive compared to alternative layer 1. I mean, if you compare Arbitrum with Polygon proof of stake or Near, you are talking about different order of magnitude. And that's because you have a cost that is the security cost of Ethereum layer 1. So layer 2 are still expensive. So the difference between a rollup that is 15 times cheaper than Ethereum mainnet like Linea, or 25 times cheaper than Ethereum mainnet like Arbitrum, it's not negligible, because you still have fractions of dollars of bigger fees. But in a while, very soon, we are going to get proto-dunk sharding. That is an upgrade of Ethereum mainnet that will actually allow us to remove 80 to 85% of the operational cost of rollups. So the fees will go down very drastically. And we will be able to compare layer 2 with alternative layer 1s like Polygon Proof of Stake or other blockchain. At that point, the difference between being 100 times cheaper than Ethereum or 125 times cheaper than Ethereum is just negligible. It's a fraction of a penny. The end user will not even notice this. So the efficiency part is something that is a sell point now for the next 3 to 4 months, because in January probably we'll get proto-dunk sharding fork on Ethereum mainnet. The Dankun upgrade, otherwise my colleague will kill me. So the efficiency part is one that is important if you think about the big numbers, but when it comes to talking to developers, it's not very relevant. So what's very relevant in our opinion, it's really the ecosystem. Like you have a DApp on Ethereum mainnet, and you want to bring the DApp on a layer 2. But if you are familiar with DApp development on Ethereum mainnet, you know very well that, you know better than everyone else, that when developer build the DApp, they relies on other building blocks like Bware APIs, like the other type of infrastructure pieces like Chainlink or oracles or account abstraction provider. All these things actually are not covered by the EVM. So if you have a DApp on Ethereum mainnet and you want to move on an EVM layer 2, you can remove your Solidity code, but the overall DApp is much more than this. They need to get access to API, they need to get access to all sort of infrastructure piece. That is part of the ecosystem. So we spent a lot of time at the beginning of this year for at least 6 months to onboard all the infrastructure piece to ensure that we can provide the zero switching cost. So you have a DApp on Ethereum mainnet. If you port it on Linea, you don't have to write any single code or adapter, because we already have more or less all the big pieces that usually developers use on Ethereum mainnet. So you don't have to rebuild or change or integrate other pieces. That's a very powerful value proposition. But it's not just about this. It's also about what's the role of an ecosystem, what's the role of Linea, of me and Linea team in this case. It's not just about building the tech. It's also about supporting the distribution of DApp. So people, dApps developers work with us because we have this mindset that we actually understand what they need, and it's all about distribution. A developer comes to build on Linea not because it's a ZK-EVM, because there are many other ZK-EVM or EVM layer 2. It's literally because they know that we are set up to try to support them, to distribute them to the general public. That's the biggest part of this. And of course, the relationship with MetaMask is super important, because MetaMask is integrated with Linea, not just at technical level. It's not just about the default network, the swap, or the bridge that is live or the on-ramp, because MetaMask support all the other network like this. It's really about a team integration. We have daily call with MetaMask team, so strategies are fully aligned. So being on Linea means that actually there's a much easier way to be distributed among the MetaMask user base. That is so far the biggest user base that we have in the industry. So that's very relevant. And it's also about link with consensus, because of course consensus is going where MetaMask is not able to go with other type of link and introduction, even outside of the Web3 space. We spend a lot of time working with enterprises, so we are highly interconnected with luxury brands, sport properties, banks, financial services, so it's also given by the network that consensus has. So that's actually what developers are asking to us, and what we give to developers to bring them on Linea. And that's where Linea is different from other layer 2. It's just about the ecosystem.
That totally makes sense. I really like this approach of having everything in place for providing a builder dApp with a zero migration cost from one chain to another. I sometimes don't understand why doesn't everyone do that? Because to me it seems like the most obvious thing to do to ensure the success of a new chain, like make it as developer friendly as possible, and uh, if there's also the possibility that you described of providing a channel to make the product or the application itself popular through the ecosystem of consensus, that's a very big win. And actually, I can speak a little bit from experience. I think Linea was the ecosystem that we integrated with the most responsive team in regards to marketing efforts, in regards to announcements and all sorts of stuff. It's really visible that you're actually doing the efforts on that area.
Thanks.
Uh, so, tell us a little bit more, because you touched on this point already in the when answering previous questions. Tell us a little bit more about the consensus ZK-EVM. How did that come into existence, and what are some specifics of it?
Yeah, I mean, how did it comes into existence? It should be something for Nicolas. Nicolas was the former lead of the R&D team in Consensus, and now he's leading Linea. So actually, he was never convinced about scaling Ethereum through sharding, like he was convinced about scaling Ethereum through layer 2. So he actually started working on Rollup with an R&D project that was actually done originally for MasterCard. So we started working on Rollup in Consensus, building a Rollup solution for an engagement with, like a professional service engagement with MasterCard. So we started really 5 years ago on this. And yeah, Nicolas was actually very visionary on this, because he not just understood the potential of scaling Ethereum through rollups, and this is something that I was already working with Consensus as a. I mean, I was in the advisory sector, and Consensus was my preferred technical partner. So I was already working with Consensus as a client, like, or a partner or a client. And I was in touch with Nicolas because of this, because we were doing proposition on rollups. And I was fully aligned with the view of scaling Ethereum through layer 2. I mean, I told you that I was a former Bitcoin maximalist, and Bitcoin is scaling through layer 2. So I was sold on the idea already. So I was fully aligned with Nicolas, and I was super interested about rollups. But when he had the vision of actually having the ZK-EVM, then it blew my mind. I remember the only other time in my professional experience I was so captured by an intuition was when I read the Satoshi white paper in late 2012. It was really, I mean, it was a fun story. We will have another time to talk. But yeah, when I spoke to Nicolas, we were spending time about talking. Yeah, I mean, optimistic rollup are fine, but fraud proof game, it's not really optimal, because people will need trustless. And if you want to be trustless on optimistic rollup, you need to wait for 7 days to declare a transaction final. And we are still not at this stage, but the sensibility of the industry will reach at that stage where the fraud proof game will need 7 days to become settled and to reach the settlement finality. In the traditional finance, this is a very relevant topic. The industry will reach at this point in the crypto as well. So when we were talking about, yeah, but the fraud proof game, it's something that is really non-efficient. But that on the other side, we cannot go with ZK rollup because it will be too much to ask people to rewrite their code or to write their code with ZK circuit. It's just not working. And then suddenly he came to me and said, look, we are starting this project. There's already another team working on this, is Jordi Balina, Polygon ZK-EVM. We believe it's feasible as well, but we have a different approach. And we had this discussion, and it was like an enlightening moment for me. I said, this actually will change the game. will literally change the game. And so that's why I decided to jump into consensus and start working on them. Now, consensus ZK-EVM is the core stack, the technical stack of Linea. You can think about like Get is for Ethereum mainnet, or Besu is for Ethereum mainnet. Consensus ZK-EVM is a set of tools, like is a set of software that includes Linea Get, that is a Linea node, or Linea Besu, that is an alternative client that we have, because we care about diversity, even at the single stack level. Then we have the core set, that is another component of the ZK-EVM. Then we have the prover, that is another component. Then we have the postman, that is another component. So consensus ZK-EVM is the suite of all the software that are needed to operate a Linea layer 2 on top of Ethereum. We are working a lot on this. There are 33 people only working on the tech stack today in consensus, plus other 20-ish people working on the Besu client, because we decided to rely on Besu, because what if we have an issue with Get? We need to get in touch with the team to fix the bug and blah, blah, blah. We really wanted to care about having internal capabilities at every single level of the stack. So we said we need to use Get and Besu, because if we have an issue with a bug, we have the Besu team in-house that we are able to prioritize to fix the bug. So it's much more important, and it's a good value proposition for Linea. So we have other 20-ish people working on the Besu team that are actually working on Linea now to make Besu available on Linea. And yeah, it's a project that we do still control the code. It's mainly because it's very fast evolving code base. So we don't want to open source something that is changing very rapidly, because if I'm a developer and I want to contribute to Linea, I will go on the repo, just the time to start reading and learning how does it work, the code will change. I will lose interest and I will move on something different. So it's better to hold on a bit. We will open source the code once the development process across the whole stack will be finalized. That means after 4844, after proto-dunk sharding. We are going to open source everything, and then we will focus a lot on creating a builder community. We want to have people coming on GitHub and forking the code and doing PR on our repository. And we want to see people using the stack to run other layer 2. As they actually use OP stack, or they use Polygon ZK-EVM to spin up additional layer 2, we are glad if people will come, and everything will be open sourced without a license. So they don't have to pay us anything. There's no ecosystem license. There's no paid commercial license. They can take the stack and run other layer 2. And it's important because it will give more diversity in the space, because there will be many OP stack rollup, many Polygon ZK-EVM rollup, and many Linea rollup as well. So it creates the balance across the diversity. So that's more or less the plan.
Yep, makes total sense. Seems like you guys have thought about everything since the beginning. I have a short additional question now, like because we talked about the consensus ZK-EVM. What's your opinion on the rollups as a service? Because this I mean, when you talked about the ZK-EVM, this also sounds like a very good use case for the consensus ZK-EVM as an alternative.
We got a lot of requests. As of now, we are giving access to our code base to few selected partners because we don't have bandwidth to operate Rollup as a service. It's a different business. Maybe the Infura team will decide to pick it up. We don't know. I mean, it's literally we don't have bandwidth in the Linea team, and I believe that the Infura team has low bandwidth like us as well. So we started to engage with other partners that are interested in leveraging the Linea tech stack to operate a rollup as a service. So as I said, the code base is changing. So it's very difficult today for a rollup as a service operator to operate a Linea rollup. It's just because there's a lot of manual process involved on the Linea network. That's because the tech stack is continuously evolving, you know. But we definitely want to have more partners engaging operating Rollup as a service. Is the reason why everything will be open sourced without any license. We really would love to see Bware Labs operating Linea Rollup as a service. Now, when it comes to does the market need all this rollup? I mean, we spend a lot of time in our last 7 years talking about enterprise blockchain. Enterprise blockchain are a failure. That's a bold sentence, but I mean, we stopped working on enterprise blockchain because actually projects were running for a lot of time. When enterprise started an enterprise blockchain process, that's our lesson learned, at least my lesson learned after a lot of time spent into this industry on enterprise level. Enterprises usually start a project on enterprise blockchain. It's usually done to drive down the price. So everybody thinks that with blockchain, they will drive down the cost. The reality is that operating an enterprise blockchain means that you have a very high infrastructure cost, because compared to a single database, you need to have a redundant database system that is much more costly than a third party. But the bigger cost, it's not the infrastructure, because bare metal, I mean, you can buy servers at kilos now, so you can just pay for their weight. It's not really the big price cost. The big price cost is to actually set up a governance model and building all the legal paperwork. Who's the validator? Who run the validator? What's the governance model behind this? We, as Consensus, we built something like 6 consortium of banks, enterprises, luxury brands. I mean, we are aware that these things needs months or years to define governance model, that managing this governance model require a lot of cost, that building all the legal paperwork, it's just a huge cost, and a never-ending discussion. So this, at the end of the day, when the use case is starting, they just look each other and they say, why we are paying 10 times more or 100 times more than running with a third party that we trust. At the end of the day, usually in this case, it's a trust issue, you know, but they can just create a consortium that is incorporated in an SPV and they can trust the SPV. So after 10 years, there are no real big enterprise use case that had a very big impact on the industry, mainly because of this reason. That's why we believe that the future, it's not about enterprise blockchain, but it's about layer 2 on top of layer 1, because that will be able to offload a lot of things. You don't have to run a full infrastructure. You can rely on the Ethereum layer 1 validator that you can trust. You don't need to build governance model. You already have the governance model of Ethereum layer 1. You don't have to build legal paperwork. No Ethereum layer 1 validator will ever sign a legal paperwork, you know, but still the technology works. You can just rely on it. You can just look at the ledger and use the ledger. And if the ledger is not enough for you, you can definitely, and you need your own blockchain, you can definitely build a rollup as a service. You will be able to trick all the metrics that you need, like block time, block size, whatever you need, and you still will rely on the security of the layer 1. So there's a huge space there. There's a huge space in some industries, because many use case does not need composability. Gaming, for example. Traditional gaming does not need composability almost at all. You don't need to bring DeFi to run Fortnite, probably, on a blockchain, you know. So in this case, it makes a lot of sense to run dedicated game chain that are roll up as a service at the end of the day, you know. So there's a lot of space, and there's already a lot of demand around this. And we just don't have the bandwidth to cover this, but the market is there.
No, I was just trying to get your opinion about the phenomenon as a whole, because to me as well, it makes a lot more sense of having a roll-up replace an actual enterprise chain. And by making roll-ups so relatively easily obtainable, once you have the ZK stacks that will be open to the market, then it also eliminates the need for the, I don't know, subnets, supernets that are provided by some of the other projects in the industry.
Well, it's. I mean, I'm not saying that rollup will prevail over subnets or supernets, because actually, at the end of the day, if you look at Cosmos ecosystem, at Polkadot ecosystem, Near ecosystem, these are all good example. You know, it's just the underlying security. What's the underlying layer one? It's just not comparable with Ethereum. Like probably the security of Ethereum is not comparable to Bitcoin if you want to look from an economical dimension, you know. And when an enterprise need to pick a layer one to trust, who do you think they're going to pick? That's the point, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly my point as well.
Yeah.
I mean, from that perspective, because you can build it on top of Ethereum, so then that's the clear advantage. Okay, so we're going into a little bit more philosophical question, or at least I'm gonna ask you to do a prediction. Do you believe that zero knowledge technology will ultimately prevail as the scaling solution for Ethereum, or do you think it will always be a mixed model with optimistic rollups as well, or maybe sharding will come back at some point?
So yeah, sharding will definitely come back. It will improve the way layer two can scale even more than for it for four. So sharding is an important piece of the equation, but it's not really super necessary. Optimistic rollup are here to stay for few more years, let's say. It's not going to disappear next year. But definitely the ZK approach is way more superior. It's way more superior, and we still don't feel it now because we believe that whatever happened on layer two has reached the settlement finality. That is not true. You know, a rollup can eventually, when we don't see it now because all rollup are centralized. Linea is run by consensus, but all the other rollup are centralized. But once we will move in a decentralized approach, then you will start having some issues. Because if you reintroduce a full decentralization scale, then you will just recreate Ethereum layer one. So you will not be able to scale just like Ethereum layer one cannot scale. So your capacity will be limited. You can reduce a bit the block time. You can extend a bit, not at all. You cannot have all this high degree of freedom to pick the dimension that you want. Because if you decentralize it a lot, you will just go back to the same Ethereum issue, you know? So when it's like this, when it's really ugly, not very ugly decentralized, but it's still the decentralization scale is a bit lower than Ethereum mainnet, then you may have issues in terms of reorgs of the network. And when we are going to see a reorg, where the industry we will start talking again about settlement finality. And settlement finality on optimistic rollup is 7 days. There's no way you can tell a user like you do on Bitcoin. If a user is going to move 10 Bitcoin for a transaction, for sure the receiving part will wait for 2 to 3 confirmation. It will not be a zero conf. Now we are in the era of the zero conf because rollup are centralized. But when the rollup will be decentralized, we will start talking about waiting for the proof game. And the proof game is 7 days. It's completely against the user experience. ZK rollup on the other side, I mean, today, technically, we are able to generate a proof every 20 minutes. 20 minutes means that you can have a settlement finality every 20 minutes. It will be much less with the new optimization that we are going to release in January. Let's assume that we are able to generate a proof at every Ethereum block. It's just hypothetical because it will cost a lot of money to operate a rollup like this. We need 50 TPS to justify the cost, but still, there's a settlement finality that many people will be able to accommodate, you know. So ZK is definitely the future. It's solving a huge issue in the ecosystem that we don't see today, but we're going to see tomorrow. So optimistic rollup are here to stay for a few more years, but at some point, the ZK are the future.
Totally makes sense. I totally agree with your take on that. Nothing to add. Okay, so as we're getting to the end of our session today, I have a question that I usually ask all the guests, and it's a lot more generic than what we talked about so far. So I want you to tell me what do you think are some key elements that we as an industry require to reach a point where blockchain technology becomes mainstream.
Did you say some
Or
elements or just one?
some,
Okay.
more than one.
Yeah, because I
But
believe that we
if
need
you
more
can
of.
choose, if you can choose one, that would be great to know. But
Yeah,
in my
so
opinion, I think we have more. Well, if
yeah.
you think we are there already, then that's fine too.
So I see we are there in some sparks, let's say. We see sparks of fulfilling all the needs that we have today. But we are not really, these are not really best practice of the industry. So the first thing, in my opinion, is the security. We don't have, I mean, the vast majority of teams that I'm talking to, they don't even have a person dedicated to the security of the DApp when they build, you know? So it's this reckless, it's not aligned with Web3 consumer market. So increasing the bar for the security is the first need. The second need, and again, here we have a lot of advanced, like the Sparks are, for example, blockchain solution providing real-time monitoring of contracts using heuristic to identify exploiter before they happen, alerting user, alerting the app. Some of them are even a bit more intrusive, like being able to stop the contract itself to avoid hacks or stuff like this. How many teams are using it? I mean, on Linea, we have three providers doing real time monitoring. Three of them are live, not just one, three of them. But how many other dApps developers care about this? So security is the first need, and we see already some sparks here and there. But we need a bit more time to consolidate. But it's very important for Web3, for mainstream, because otherwise people will just come, lose their money, or get scammed, and then will just turn on their back and never come back anymore. You know, it's like ChatGPT. What if ChatGPT was stealing your credential? Nobody will use it. You know, the security aspect is very relevant. The second thing is the UX. UX for the onboarding, especially. Here, account abstraction is a very becoming a mature trend. Still, it's a lot of chit chat within the ecosystem. Real dApps are not really using this yet, so we need a bit more time there. So it's again Sparks, but yeah, Spark, but it's just about onboarding flows and user experience. The third one, and I'm talking to you, man, because it's really on your shoulder. We desperately need to have cross-chain native dApps, and that's up to you that are infrastructure provider and your colleagues, your peers, and the other people. You should be able to support these dApps, because again, the next bull market will not come on Linea. People will not be interested on Linea. People will be interested in a use case that will be implemented by a dApp. So let's say that Marco will be the dApp that will power the next bull run. The most adopted app, like the OpenSea of the NFT crazy time that we had last time. Let's say that Marco is this app. If Marco is building on Linea, Marco will not be able to accommodate the huge load. So Marco needs to be on Linea, but also on Base, also on Scroll, also on Arbitrum, so that actually when the load will come, Marco will be able to spread transaction across multiple rollups. You know, that's the things that we need. So we need that. I am fully aware that for many of players like you, it's very difficult because you have cost every time you integrate and attach to a new network. You have physical cost of providing services with hardware, but it's really important that infrastructure providers support many rollups out there to let and support the app developer to build native cross-chain apps. Otherwise, we will not have too many other opportunity to fulfill a promise. The next bull run, we need to be prepared. Otherwise, I'm not sure how many other bull run we are going to have. If we will see again horde of user coming and then transaction fees spiking and the user experience going shit, sorry for the word, but going bad, then this user will come back. We need to wait for another bull run. I'm not sure we will have another bull run after the next one, you know. So it's really important.
Yeah, I completely agree, and you basically touched most of most of my opinion about what we need to become mainstream. I'm a product guy, so my main concern is around exactly what you said, having a easier onboarding and a better UX. Ultimately, a user should not know that the application runs on blockchain or not. That should be abstracted by the developers and the infrastructure providers. The security is for sure the most important aspect, and the multi-chain approach is also something that we've been working on since the beginning. Our approach is multi-chain, and we've built the architecture generic enough so that we can add a new network in matter of 1 or 2 weeks.
And I mean, your approach will be the one that will be actually rewarded by the industry, because again, many provider trying to use their kingmaker position to implement business model to sell on blockchain. This is not sustainable. You know, you need to provide service to dApps, not to blockchain. The way you are approaching the ecosystem is really, it deserves a big kudos. And it's pretty clear that your infrastructure is built to quickly add new chains, because the integration was done in no time with you guys, and yeah, it was super appreciated on our side.
Thank you for the kind words. Well, and thank you for joining us today. For me, it was a very insightful discussion, and your take on reliability through diversity, that's something that I'm gonna use from now on, because I think it totally makes sense. It's really important. Now, I think this is it for today's discussion. Maybe we will meet each other at some of the following conferences and maybe another webinar soon when the consensus ZK-EVM is open source. But yeah, thank you for being here with us, and best of luck to the Linea ecosystem.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting me.
Thank you.